Fractions. When an equation has fractions, we can clear the fractions by multiplying each term by the least common denominator. And after multiplying, we can reduce to remove the fractions. So let's go look at example 1 to see how we can do this. So solve for x in the equation below. So we have 1/8 x minus 2/4, which is equal to 1/2. So what we do is we look for the least common denominator. And we can see that we have 8, 4, and 2. So our least common denominator will be 8. So what we do is we're going to multiply each term in this whole equation by 8. And then that way we'll get rid of every denominator. And we have to multiply each term by 8 because whatever you do to one term, you have to do to both sides. So here we're going to multiply that by 8, multiply this number by 8, and multiply this number by 8. And so what happens is this 8 and this 8 cross out and they each become 1. Now this 4, so 8 divided by 4 though, this becomes a 1, but this 8 becomes a 2, as 8 divided by 4 is equal to 2. Now this 2 and this 8 get multiplied, or 8 divided by 2 essentially, and this 2 then becomes a 1, and this 8 becomes a 4, because 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. So now we've just reduced everything, so no longer has any fractions in it. So this becomes, this 1 times 1 is just 1x. Now we have minus, so now we have this 2 and this 2. And here we have a 1 and a 4 to multiply. So 2 times 2 is 4. And then on the right-hand side of the equal sign, it's 1 times 4. So that's 4. So then this becomes a problem that we've seen before. So we're just going to add 4 to both sides. We'll get rid of it on the left-hand side. So we get just 1x all by itself. And then we get 4 plus 4. So that's 8. So we're left with just x is equal to 8. And that would be our final solution to this problem. So let's do one more example. Example 2. Solve for x in the equation below. So here we have 6/4 plus 6 over 10x, which is equal to 18 over 4 plus 8 over 10x. Now, to solve for this, what we do is we find the least common denominator between the 4 and the 10. And the least common denominator, the number that they both are a multiple of, is 20. So what we do is we're going to multiply each number or each term by 20. So now we can use, or we can, as 4 is a factor within 20, as you can break it down, we can make 4 just become a 1. And so 20 divided by 4 is equal to 5. Then let's also do this one. So 20 and 10 both have a common factor of just 10. So we can take out a whole 10. So 10 divided by 10 is just 1. 20 divided by 10 is 2. Now we have 20. Same thing with 20 and a 4. So this just becomes 1. This becomes a 5. This will become a 1. And this becomes a 2. You can also think of it as 20 divided by 10. So that just was the 2. So now we have just numbers with no fractions in them. And we will do, forgot this x. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewrite this now. So now we have 6 times this 5. So that's equal to 30. Now we have plus. Now 6 times 2 is 12, and it's with an x right here. Then we have an equal sign. Now we have 18 times 5. Let's go ahead and get our calculator out. 18 times 5, which is equal to 90. Then we have 8 times 2, so that's 16x. And then what we do is we're going to rearrange. So let's go ahead and move the 12x first to the right-hand side. It gets rid of it on the left-hand side, and we're left with just 30, which is equal to 90. Now we have 16 minus 12, so that is just 4x. Then the next thing we do is we're going to move the 90. So we're going to subtract on both sides. So then, therefore, it's gone on the right-hand side. And so now we have 4x. And now we have 30 minus 90, which is equal to minus 60. If you're not quite sure, always feel free to get that calculator out and go ahead and perform that calculation. So now we have negative 60 on the left-hand side and a 4x on the right. So let's go ahead and divide by 4 on both sides. So then we get x all by itself, because this just becomes ones. So now we have negative 60 divided by 4, which is equal to negative 15. And that would be our solution to this problem.